In an effort to help New York's laws keep up with the pace of artificial intelligence evolution, Assemblymember Alex Boris, a Manhattan Democrat with a background in computer science, has introduced legislation imposing guardrails for companies pushing the boundaries of AI technology. This regulatory effort has faced severe backlash from the tech industry, which generally balks at state-level oversight. And to discuss their reservations with this latest oversight measure, we're joined on the Capitol Pressroom by Todd O'Boyle, Vice President of Technology Policy at the Chamber of Progress and Industry Tech Policy Coalition. Well, I want to start with this premise from Assemblymember Boras, which is that our state and federal laws are not keeping up with the breakthroughs in artificial intelligence technology. So putting aside what the right regulatory approach might be, do you agree with that read of the regulatory landscape?
We would disagree. The fact is there's a large amount of policy on the books already that governs AI, and AI companies and associations like ours have been deeply involved in the policymaking process across administrations at the federal level, and we also work closely with state legislators. So I would dispute the notion that AI is somehow unregulated or untouched by policy.
Well, maybe not unregulated, but maybe there aren't guardrails for some of the areas in which artificial intelligence technology is treading into, that some of the latest breakthroughs and future breakthroughs are beyond the comprehension of our state or federal regulations.
There's certainly a role for policy to play. There's a role for policymakers to play at the state and the federal level. In terms of technological advance, from our perspective, innovation is a good thing. AI innovation is going to help us unlock new cures that we have thought impossible, new applications to change the way we live our daily lives. So we want to embrace that. And we also want to be safe. From our perspective, the way to be safe is to regulate against harms and misuse of AI tools, as opposed to regulating the AI models themselves. It's not really clear that innovation at the AI model level it translates directly to harm at the end user level. But if someone misuses an AI tool, sure, they should be held accountable.
Well, as described by Assemblymember Boras, his legislation wouldn't necessarily be a break from what most companies in the AI space are doing, and instead would ensure that all of these developers are playing by the same rules, including having a third-party reviewed safety plan to ensure potential risk, a system for protecting whistleblowers who are trying to highlight applications or investigations or developments that might cause critical harm, and a proactive disclosure of major security incidents. For starters, what do you think of this idea that a lot of players in the space are already taking those types of steps themselves, whether it's a third-party review of safety plans or trying to proactively disclose major incidents?
Well, you're absolutely right that the largest AI companies right now, they're very transparent and they proactively share things like safety plans with the public. That's all to the good. I'm less concerned about the larger companies that are already doing things like this. I'm more concerned about the next OpenAI, the next Anthropic, the next model company that doesn't exist right now. The larger regulatory infrastructure and the larger compliance costs that we burden these companies with, the harder it is to build the next new startup. The supporters of this bill will say none of these requirements kick in until you've reached a certain size. But from our perspective, line drawing exercises around things like the amount of computing processing power that was used to train the model or the cost to train it are ultimately arbitrary line drawing exercises and may inhibit the growth of the next great model company that's going to transform the way that we use technology on a daily basis. Already tools like ChatGPT and Google Gemini are changing the way that we get work done and the way students learn. I can't wait to see what's going to happen next. But for that exciting new innovation to come, we need a competitive, dynamic environment at the model level so that developers have the best tools to build with.
Well, in terms of that threshold, it's my understanding that something like GPT-4 wouldn't even meet the threshold that is laid out in this legislation, but you described it as arbitrary. So what is the threshold or eligibility criteria that should be utilized for these types of safety measures?
Well, again, I think anytime you draw a line in the sand, it's going to be inherently an arbitrary line. Our focus is on identifying misuse at the end user level and holding end users that misuse tools responsible. This proposal is not focused on that at all. It's focused on if I build a model and then someone else builds an application on top of that model, and then someone else misuses that application. It tries to control for misuse by a third party by regulating at the model level. We feel that a much more straightforward way to address any harms that may arise from misuse of AI tools is just to regulate the misuse of AI tools directly.
Well, I think about something like the Manhattan Project now 80 years ago, where there was intense security surrounding the project to develop a nuclear bomb. And to me, that seems like a parallel to what is being proposed by Assemblymember Boris. There were intense scrutiny measures on the good guys, so to speak, and what they were trying to develop in order to prevent the worst case scenario. So don't we have a history of trying to regulate technology this way, especially in cases where we're heading into brave new worlds like nuclear 80 years ago or artificial intelligence now?
I think a better parallel is to the foundation of the internet itself, right? If the AI is like the next great revolution in internet technology, let's look at the way the internet itself was sprang up. And it sprang up from a world of open source and collaboration. It did not spring up from the sort of preemptive regulations and preemptive lockdowns that I think you're describing. And so I think the way that we can count on innovation flourishing to the benefit of all of us is by allowing developers to build the best products they can with the best tools at hand, and then we can address any misuse down the road.
What about the requirements of a proactive disclosure of a major security incident? Is that something that you have an issue with as a requirement?
There is a responsible way to disclose security issues, and I think there's a way for us to structure that would not be problematic. I do want to say, though, it is important to note that many of the requirements and many of the obligations under this bill do not apply to nonprofit research endeavors. And so if one is concerned that these models are uniquely harmful, it's odd to me that nonprofit research endeavors are not covered. So if they're dangerous, they're dangerous, right? I think that's probably because New York has launched its Empire AI initiative, which is housed at the universities. Empire AI is a great program, and we would love to see more of that kind of open, research-driven experimentation because it yields these sort of beneficial innovations that have transformed everyday life, first with the internet and now with AI.
And what about the idea of requiring some sort of safety plans and having them reviewed by a third party? Because the comparison that the Assembly member makes is that if you want to run something as mundane as a daycare, you're going to have a safety plan. So is that something that should be required by everyone who's trying to enter this space?
It's not really clear to me that third-party auditors per se are better than internally developed safety reviews, right? So
why not?
I see,
because then you have someone who's actually doing some oversight as opposed to someone who might have a vested interest in skirting certain more burdensome processes.
Well, I think we saw right there in New York 20 years ago with the auditing scandals, Enron, Arthur Andersen, and so forth, that auditors often have a vested interest in giving a company a passing grade so that they come.
So you remove the conflict of interest that they have. You make it a third-party entity whose business is not contingent on having a favorable relationship. I mean, it seems like the past problems with something like this are a learning experience and not a reason not to do something.
I mean, I would disagree that solves for that. If anything, the fact that there's multiple third-party AI auditing companies means that companies can shop around and find the one that's going to give them the easiest passing grade. So I don't think we have a good settled approach. I think that the AI industry, the tech industry broadly, is coming up with best practices right now and thinking through in a very open and transparent manner, the way to arrive at safety and the way that's going to ensure that AI is developed in a way that is beneficial to everyone. Right now, imposing one set of safety protocols through legislation is premature, and we don't know that we've solved for all of those potential problems and vested interests that you just referred to.
So moving forward, how are you going to approach your lobbying on this issue? Is it simply standing in the way of these types of regulations? Are you going to be coming forward with some of the ideas for improving this legislation as you see it that the Assembly member can introduce? And how should the public go about deciphering between good faith efforts to work towards some sort of regulations and objections you might raise that are really about stopping or slowing down this process?
I'm glad you asked. We've met with Assemblyman Boris multiple times. I found him to be a very knowledgeable and very engaged policymaker. We've shared our thoughts and on a number of his AI bills, and I believe he's even taken some of our amendments under advisement. So we have engaged very substantively. Right now, we're opposed to this bill. I can't say what the future holds and what the final product would look like. As of right now, it's not something we can support. And I should note today, as we record this April 1st, we have published a podcast, a Gen AI podcast, where we used AI tools to have two people talk about the very top issue we're talking about right now.
Well, not two people.
Yes, well, two Gen AI co-hosts discussing the merits and demerits of the RAISE Act. We shared it with Assemblyman Boris, and I think he got a good laugh out of it. So to answer your question, we're engaged very substantively. We're trying to find a way to improve AI policy at the state and federal level, and we'll continue to do so. Well,
unfortunately, we're going to have to leave this conversation here. We've been speaking with Todd O'Boyle. He is the Vice President of Technology Policy at the Chamber of Progress. Todd, thank you so much for making the time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, David.